Thank you. Mr. Blaikie, 7 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. I was wondering, in the supplementary estimates, is there any money set aside to reimburse Canada Post workers who are on short-term disability during the rotating strike?
No, there is not.
Do you think it's fair that they should go 5 weeks without being, they're already on making 70% of their salary because they have a work-related disability? Do you think it was fair that they didn't get paid for 5 weeks?
It has to do with the fact that when the decision was made to do the rotating strike, the collective agreement effectively terminated, and as a result, the benefits under that agreement terminated. So I don't think it was fair at all.
That was a decision that the corporation made. They could have decided to carry on with those benefits, and in fact, it's a decision you could have made.
And in fact, they did carry on with some of the benefits. They continued on with the disability benefits. Yeah, but there are a lot of people who didn't get paid their short-term disability benefits, and do you think that that's fair? Short-term disability continued for individuals who were on short-term disability, as I understand it.
That's not our understanding at all from the many people who
I can get that clarified to my understanding.
On short-term disability.
Okay.
So then the question becomes, why is it? I mean, we brought this up in the House. Why didn't you get on the phone to Canada Post management and get the answer then, and reinstate the benefits for those people? We know that under the Canada Post Corporation Act, the corporation exercises its powers and duties in a way that it will comply with such directives as the minister may give to it. So I mean, why did you not see a need to tell your corporation not to cut off disabled workers during a rotating strike? To be clear, Canada Post workers weren't out every day. It was a rotating strike. So in any given region, you've got maybe up to 4 days that Canada Post workers weren't working, and every other day they went into work, they delivered the mail, and they got paid. But the people who are on short-term disability, who are already only collecting 70% of their salary, didn't get paid at all. How are they going to make that money back if government doesn't reimburse them for the money they lost during that rotating strike?
My understanding is that most benefits continued, and Canada Post put in place a process by which employees could make requests for special compensation, and none of those requests were denied.
Why do you think they should have to ask for special treatment when those are benefits that they're entitled to?
All they literally had to do was make the corporation aware of their loss, and they would have been reimbursed.
Except that the corporation decided to make a mean-spirited decision as a tactic to try and break the strike, one that you endorsed by doing nothing.
I don't characterize it that way, sir.
Well, I do, and so do the many postal workers across the country. Are you not listening to them? Are you only listening to Canada Post management?
I think we've done a very good job over the past year of working hard to repair the relationship between management and union that had been significantly fractured in the decade before.
Well, I'll tell you what, when workers went back after you legislated them back to work,
for a new vision that put service to Canadians first.
Well, when Canada Post workers went back after being legislated back by your government, one of the first things they found out was that despite the fact that there were only maybe several days during the 5 weeks that the rotating strike was happening, the Canada Post was telling them that for the accumulation of their personal leave and their vacation leave, they were being told that for the entire 5 weeks, Canada Post was going to dock them from their personal leave and their vacation leave. Now, you tell me, as the person responsible for Canada Post, how you think that's going to improve labour relations between Canada Post management and the workers.
Well, I can tell you there's definitely the relationship is not where it needs to be to move forward with.
So why are you letting your management poke them in the eye when you say you want better relations?
In the newly established leadership of Canada Post. We have a brand new board and a brand new chair and acting interim CEO, and they have done a significant amount in terms of addressing the needs of Canada Post employees.
Well, what I'm telling you today,
whether it be bullying and harassment or addressing issues of overtime, they are moving ahead on these really
What I'm telling you today
issues.
On behalf of the many postal workers that have contacted my office, so it's not coming from me, is that when they reported back to work, because they were required by your law to report back to work, one of the first things they heard was that Canada Post was going to dock their personal leave and their vacation leave for the entire duration of the strike, notwithstanding the fact that almost every day of that strike, they went into work and they reported to work. And that's a consequence of your legislation. Your legislation specifically exempts the entire strike period for counting against that accumulation, never mind the fact that they were going to work. So how do you think you're going to improve labor relation management and get a negotiated solution when you allow your management, as their first act after legislating those people back to work, to poke them in the eye? How do you think that promotes better labor management relations?
I appreciate and sympathize with the toll that the labour dispute has taken, particularly
They don't need your
on employees.
sympathy.
Well,
they need
haven't.
you to do something about a management that repeatedly decides
This is
to
not the
poke
Canada
and prod
Post
them and
management
take
of
them
times
on.
past. This is a
Well,
new
actually,
Canada Post management.
if you talk to the workers there, they'll tell you it is.
Look, I know how passionate Mr. Blaikie, you and others are when dealing with this. This was a long simmering dispute, and I can understand all of that, and I can understand why the questions you were posing to the minister are such that it may tend to inflame the emotions again of members around this committee or members of the union. However, all I'm suggesting here, sir, and to the minister, is that we continue to do what we always do at committee and treat all of our witnesses with respect. The questions should be direct, should be aggressive at times if you feel so that they should be posed in such a manner. But I would also ask the minister to answer direct questions with direct answers if possible. But I'd like to keep this on a level that is respectful of both the minister and the witnesses along with her. Mr. Blaikie, you've got about 2.5 minutes left.
Thank you. I'll come back to a comment that the minister made about, this isn't the Canada Post of years past. One of the things that Canada Post is paying for right now with interest is a decision to deny Canada Post workers their sick leave during a previous rotating strike and subsequent lockout, and then they were legislated back to work. And after years of significant costs to the union representing those workers and to the corporation itself, an arbitrator determined that actually there was an acquired or vested right to those benefits, and the company was not within its rights to deny those benefits. Now we've seen something similar happen with respect to the short-term disability plan. And so when people who've worked there, because there's many people who worked there in 2011 and many people who work there today and span that whole period, when they look at what happened in 2011 and they look at what's happening now, Canada Post management is adopting the same techniques. They decided to take away sick days, which was what obtained at the time in 2011, and they decided to go after short-term disability, which replaced those sick days now. So when they look at that situation, they don't see what's different. Canada Post engaged in the same kinds of strike-breaking tactics in 2018 as it did in 2011. So why don't you explain to those people who don't see it in their daily work life what exactly you think the difference is between Canada Post management techniques in 2011 and Canada Post management techniques today?
Thank you. Well, I am of the firm belief that Canada Post management is behaving differently than it has in the past. We gave a very forward-looking mandate to the new chair in January of this year that corresponded with our service-focused vision for Canada Post. We put at the very top of the list to improve relations, as I indicated, were fractured between management and labour. I know personally, when I have met with unions, the leadership of CUPW in particular, they are grateful for some of the initiatives that management has taken, as I referred to, particularly with respect to bullying and harassment and dealing with a very clunky past process on overtime that the CEO, pardon me, that she was the chair at the time, had dealt with directly. I think it's unfortunate.
But I mean, one of the major issues has been that Canada Post uses mandated overtime repeatedly.
Fortunately, I have given some additional time for my intervention, but we are out of time for this intervention.